What you're looking at next to me is the newest addition to the Suzuki range, which is the Jimny XL. So if you're not clued into what a Jimny XL is, as you can see, it's essentially your JB74 that we've already got here in Australia, but with the addition of your 2 extra doors at the back. So instead of being your standard 3-door model, this is now available in a 5-door. And then it's, everything's pretty much the same, like I said earlier, engine, etc. But you're basically adding on 320mm in length, so you're getting a long wheelbase version of the Jimny, with a few changes in price. So we'll go through what those major changes are. I want to go through 3 things I love about this Jimny and 3 things that I'm not so keen about on this Jimny. So right off the bat, some of the basic things, the width, the height, exactly the same. So the suspension setup's the same from the XL to the standard and the light. Everything's the same. It's literally just the length that's bigger. So under the bonnet, you've got the same 1.5 litre engine. The gearing is the exact same between all of the Jimny models, actually, even the light. So one thing to keep in mind is it's going to weigh a little bit extra, obviously, with the 320mm extension. We'll talk about storage in the back. You obviously do get those back doors, which is great for loading in passengers from the side, baby seats, everything like that. One of the amazing features of the JB74, the standard Jimny, is that the seats fold completely flat. And what I love about that is it basically means you get this flat platform. You don't need to remove the seats. You can put your fridge, you can put your swag, everything like that on top of it, and it's just ready to go. Whereas in this one, you'll see in a second, but the seats don't fold completely flat. So that'll tie into some of the 3 things that I'm not so keen on the Jimny. So both the approach and the departure angle of the Jimny remains about the same. There's 1 or 2 degrees change there. The biggest change that you're going to notice is the breakover angle. Obviously with the 320mm extension, the breakover angle is going to be completely different compared to that short wheelbase Jimny. It's not too noticeable because it still is a very short vehicle, but it is something to consider if you're into serious off-roading. So one of the biggest benefits of the Jimny XL is the back seat storage. So when you've got those seats folded up, you'll know if you've got a standard JB74, there's, they joke about it fitting a baguette, and that's pretty much all it fits in there. But with this XL version, you're going from 85 litres of storage volume behind the seats with it folded up between the door, up to just over 210 litres. So it's a huge upgrade, and it means that if you're going out with a couple of mates, you can fit a little esky in the back, you can fit some bags in the back without any issues. Where the storage gets interesting is when the seats are folded. So you'd think you'd get a bit more storage with the XL, but interestingly you don't. The volume that you get in the storage area actually goes down from about 377 litres down to 330, or just over 330. So, and that's mainly, I believe, because the seats don't fold flat. There's a few other, inclusions and window pillars and things, but I think the main thing is the seats don't fold flat. And that was really surprising for me because, when you look at it, and when you think 320mm longer, you should get a significant increase in storage there. And you obviously get the increase when the seats are up, but when the seats are down, you lose that increase. So don't get me wrong, there's the benefits of the extra length. You can fit, surfboards, you can fit more in there, but the actual volume is lower, which really surprised me. But that'll tie into 3 things I'm not so keen on this Jimny. But let's dive into the 3 things that I absolutely love about this Jimny. Now the first thing I love about this Jimny has got to be the size. And I mean, it's the Jimny XL. It's what everyone's been wanting, the long wheelbase Jimny. Some people say, oh, the Jimny, should be a short wheelbase. This isn't a Jimny. But don't forget, Suzuki in a lot of Asian countries was producing a long wheelbase Sierra for a very long time. So this isn't far from the Suzuki heritage, and they have a lot of experience with long wheelbase vehicles. And ultimately, sure, it's long wheelbase, but it's really not that long anyway. So size, having that extra space just means that even if you don't have the mentality of packing more things, if you just think, oh, I just have less restriction on what I can bring, instead of sometimes my setup, I'm like packing, cubes into little places, and it feels like you're playing Tetris all the time. And with the XL, I think you'll kind of lose the need for that, because if you go camping with just 2 people, you'll find a way to kind of make it all fit in there nicely, without needing to kind of jam things in the back and slam the door and hope that things don't fall out when you get to your destination. Now, the second thing I love about this Jimny is something that I guess you don't really get to say with a lot of new cars, but is the accessory range. So right off the bat, as I said, this is essentially the same Jimny as the JB74, which means that, roof racks, light bars, bull bars, you know, suspension upgrades, tyres, everything like that. It's already an established market that's been around for about 5 years, and you know, accessory fitters like K-On and ARB, TJM, they're all jumping on board already with the Jimny and they love it. So it means that basically as soon as you buy one of these, you take delivery, you can kit it out. Whereas for a lot of Jimny owners like me, when I first got the Jimny, it was, you know, pleading with companies to just recognize that there was potential in this market. Now, the third thing that I love about the Jimny is the quality of life improvements that it's got. So, you know, this is a bit of a facelift model, I guess you could say. I think a lot of these upgrades will come to the short wheelbase Jimny, and maybe some of them will come to the Jimny Light. But you know, there's a lot of these upgrades that just make general driving more enjoyable. So you've got things like adaptive cruise control, which basically changes, you know, you set your speed like normal cruise control, but it changes the distance that you're behind the car. But it's quite smart. I've been using it on the highway, even with a little bit of rain, you know, where the sensors are getting a little bit fogged up. It had no issues whatsoever. The second thing I love is the head unit. It is bloody fantastic. It's a 9-inch touchscreen. So I've got the 2019 Jimny with the 6-inch Bosch unit, which has been really good, but the 9-inch unit, you know, it's considerably larger. It's actually integrated with the car, so you get all of your kind of information that you would have gotten on the tiny screen in the middle of the Speedo, and now that's on, so you get your fuel efficiency, all those kind of metrics. But the best part is wireless CarPlay, which, you know, most modern cars have got it. The previous Jimnys, the MY22, MY21, had some issues with the head unit, so it's really great to see Suzuki's actually addressed it with a completely new head unit this time. A couple of other small things that the Jimny gets, which kind of helps with your daily life, is rear parking sensors. I don't really think you need rear parking sensors on a Jimny, but it's nice to have them, and I guess with that extra length, you know, it's nice to be able to see behind that back door. The rear view camera is also a lot wider, so it's got more of a fisheye lens, so you can get a lot more of the picture into the frame. Jimny comes with 4 speakers, so the previous Jimnys and I think the Jimny Light only come with the 2 front speakers, and then the wiring's done at the back, but no speakers. Whereas this one, you get the full 4-speaker experience. The sound's pretty good, it's loud enough. I think it lacks a bit of bass, mainly because it doesn't have a sub. Of course, it keeps all your standard safety features, your emergency autonomous braking, you know, your hill descent control, all the standard features that came with the previous Jimny, they're all there. One omission is the automatic headlights on the Jimny XL. They turn on the high beam, but there was a high beam assist on the short wheelbase, but that seems to be missing from the XL for some reason. All right, enough about the things that I love. I think that there's going to be a lot of positive reviews out there. I do want to draw some criticism on this car. The first thing that I'm not the biggest fan of is the size. I know I just went on about how good the size was, but it's a bit of a love-hate relationship. You know, in my mind, the size is fantastic, but when you've got 320 mil of extra space, you have that kind of temptation to pack more. This car, you know, it's already a car where you need to pack light. You need to really think about what you're going to bring, because you can't just go and buy your standard camp table, this, that. You need to actually think, you know, what's space efficient, you know, what doesn't weigh too much. Whereas in this Jimny, because you've got that bit more space, I think there's going to be the temptation to just kind of throw a bit more in. The second thing for me is that, you know, I've said it a couple of times, but the seat's not folding flat. That for me is quite bizarre, that you get less storage when you've got those seats folded down. You know, in Queensland, if you were to remove those rear seats and make, you know, a nice long platform, when you go to sell the car, you would need to mod plate it unless you can put those seats back in. A lot of people do it with the short wheelbase Jimny. I've done it, but it's just one of those things where if you got that extra space, it would have been awesome to have gotten, you know, actually get more storage from it rather than just having extra space but less volume, which like I said, I find a bit bizarre. Final thing I don't like about this Jimny is the engine, and you know, I've got the same engine in my short wheelbase Jimny. It's fine for the short wheelbase Jimny. Sometimes it struggles when you're going up a big hill, but like I said, you know, with the first thing that I didn't really like with the size, when you have the temptation to pack more, you're going to find that that engine probably isn't sufficient. You know, when you're on a really long trip, you can really notice the Jimny, and especially in the auto, like a 4-speed auto where it's dropping back gears to get you up a hill. If you've got 4 people in there and bags, you know, you're really going to feel it. Whereas at least in the short wheelbase Jimny, you can only really put 2 people and some bags, or 4 people and pretty much no bags. So I think that's something that people really will notice. You know, now that the Jimny's been out, it's got the same engine, you do benefit from the accessories, which means things like exhaust, throttle controllers, they're all interchangeable. But it doesn't change the fact that it's a naturally aspirated engine, which makes it incredibly hard to actually get more power. And even after 5 years of the Jimny being out, there's not many reliable superchargers or turbochargers. Given that Suzuki has such a large range, a lot of them have small engines, a lot of them have factory turbos. It seems to me like a huge missed opportunity. I understand bringing it to market, you know, it would be a lot quicker to keep the same engine, keep all the same components, but even the short wheelbase Jimny could benefit from a factory turbo. So that's the 3 things I love and 3 things that I don't love so much about the Jimny XL. I do want to go into a few more of the smaller technical information. I want to talk about the backseat storage. I want to show you what you actually get and don't get in that back area. So we'll start off with the engine. So if you're not already familiar with this little Jimny's engine, it's the 1.5 litre engine, produces 75 kilowatts, about 130 Newton meters. The XL is the exact same as the Lite, as the standard JB74, the Jimny as they're calling it. So nothing really notable there, but if you didn't know about it, that's kind of what's packing under the hood. Now mechanically the Jimny is essentially the same. So your gearing, your engine, like I said, the same. One new change on the Jimny, which I'm not sure if is just for the XL because of the extra weight, or if it's something that will be coming to the rest of the Jimny range, is ventilated disc brakes at the front. So previously we had standard disc brakes, but the XL has benefited from ventilated disc brakes, and then it's got your standard drum brakes in the back like all the other range. So if you talk about the weight of the Jimny, the XL comes in at 1.54 tonne, and the Jimny Lite and the standard Jimny come in at around 1.4. So you're basically adding in about 110 kilos of weight while keeping the same engine and a bit longer, everything like that. Now when we talk about towing, this Jimny, like all the other Jimnys, can tow 1.3 tonne braked and about 350 kilos unbraked. It's not a lot, but with that engine, I don't think you want to be towing much more than that. All right, that's enough of all the technical specs. I want to give you a bit of a walk around of the car. We've done the engine, we've done everything like that. I'll show you the interior. Driver's seat wise, it's much the same as your standard Jimny, the Jimny Lite. It's comfortable, there's plenty of room in here. You know, I'm about 6 foot and I fit very nicely in here. You know, as you can see, interior is essentially the exact same. In here you've got the same steering wheel that comes with all the other Jimnys, with the addition here of your adaptive cruise control. So you've got your little screen, that 9-inch screen there, which is a huge improvement. All the same controls here, and then the exact same, obviously you get the addition of your 2 rear window buttons, but everything else is pretty much the same. 4-speed auto. Now coming around to the rear passenger area, you'll see, sorry, a bit faster, you'll see that the doorway is quite small, but it's workable. Jump in, and straight away you'll see I fit quite well. Like I said, I'm about 6 foot. I have a little bit of headroom there, about 1.5 inches of headroom. The door is, like I said, pretty small, comically small, but it's got kind of everything you need there. This small window obviously doesn't go down because of the wheel arch. You've got your electronic windows at the back. Really all you can ask for. Plenty of knee space there. That seat is set up for a 6 foot driver, and then you've got a 6 foot passenger. So, you know, if you've got the standard Jimny, you know that that's a huge improvement over what comes with the short wheelbase Jimny. I could never fit comfortably in the back of my Jimny, but there's actually enough room for, you know, maybe not a long distance drive, but a medium to long distance drive. I'd be perfectly comfortable back here. The seat's adjustable back, so this is the furthest it goes back, but it's actually very comfortable. And I'm in here with a baby seat, so we'll move around the car in a second and I'll show you that. But first up, we'll head to the boot. So the boot area is a lot larger than the short wheelbase Jimny. So you can straight up see here, you know, I said before, joking about a baguette fitting in this back area. In the short wheelbase Jimny, you pretty much got from about that point there back as storage. So it's a huge improvement in storage. You know, same setup here with the tailgate door that doesn't quite open to 90 degrees, but there's plenty of options on the market to change that anyway. Your standard headlights, like I said, tail lights, sorry. Then we've got the addition, it's a different bumper because you've got the addition of these rear parking sensors here, but I'd assume it's the same tow bar, the same aftermarket headlights you can all swap out. Importantly for your young families, you've got your top tether here. What I don't like is that they've moved, or they've lost the threaded inserts that used to be here, which I use for fridges and tie down points. They've still got 2 here, They've got accessory bolt holes, that's those M6 ones. The seats latch on, I can't believe that one, the seats latch on here. But you can also see what I was talking about those seats not folding flat. Really disappointing in my opinion. This could act as a good tie down point for accessories, but that not folding flat is a huge missed opportunity. And even if you take the headrest off, it's the same. So over this side, you know, much the same as the other side, obviously, same door, but this is with a baby seat in it. So this, I don't know much about baby seats, I don't have a baby, so I borrowed this seat, but it is all attached. The person I borrowed the seat off wasn't too comfortable with how far forward this baby seat was sitting, where, you know, you'll see that the majority of it is sitting on the seat, but there's a lot of overhang there. Apparently, don't quote me on this, but you're supposed to have, you know, a bit of space between this seat here, which leads to some issues when you move around the front. So I won't dive too much into the baby seat thing because, like I said, I don't really know much about it. But when we're in the front seat, space starts to become a little bit of an issue, where you can see that at 6 foot, sorry, I keep saying that, but just for reference of my height, you can see that there's a bit of an issue with seating, so you're going to need to sit someone smaller in the front if you plan to have a baby seat. So for small families, you know, if you've got a shorter person, they're just going to have to be the passenger. But you can see there, it's not the most comfortable and probably not very safe. I can take it back a little bit further, but then you lose that space between the baby seat and the back of the seat for that safety kind of space. So that's quite disappointing. I thought with 320mm extra that there would be enough room to comfortably have a baby seat, because even in the previous Jimny models, you could have a baby seat in the back and have this kind of discomfort level. So it's surprising to see that with 320mm extra space, that issue wasn't solved. So some Jimny fans will be a fan of this intermittent wiper, which also includes a rear intermittent wiper, which is a nice upgrade. And we'll take a look at this touchscreen now. So I've got CarPlay set up. So like I said, this is your 9-inch screen. I'll go into that. It's quite responsive, and this is all wireless, which is fantastic. So I've got nothing plugged into that port there, which leaves it free for charging. So your cigarette port as well for charging. But yeah, it's as responsive as you could possibly want. If I head back to the home screen, you'll see that, like I was saying, it's actually linked into the vehicle. So it's not just a cheap aftermarket head unit that's been added in. This is actually integrated in. So we've got, you know, stats like range, we've got stats like your fuel economy all added in here. It's linked to my Bluetooth, so you've got your Bluetooth, Apple CarPlay, Android Auto, everything like that. But this screen itself, as you can see, is quite responsive for a factory head unit. Interestingly, no factory sat nav, but you know, for a lot of people, we're all using Apple CarPlay, so there's not really that much point in switching over to using that satellite mapping anyway. So finally, and maybe most importantly for a lot of people, is the price. The manual suggested retail is $34,990, and then the automatic is $36,490. So it's about a $3,000 increase on the Jimny, the short wheelbase Jimny. But you know, as we all know, they haven't been selling for suggested retail price for probably the last 18 months. So I've seen an XL already sell for around $45,000 from a dealer down in New South Wales. So I'd expect the $45,000 for an auto to be kind of the ballpark of what we're expecting to pay. So obviously that puts this in competition, you know, very close competition with something like the Tank 300, a lot of dual cab utes. So it'll be interesting to see, you know, if Suzuki can keep the market even at that higher price point. I think the extra space is a good thing, but it means that you're opening up to a whole range of new competitors, whereas, you know, the short wheelbase, it was quite niche. People that had it probably weren't going to buy a dual cab ute. They probably maybe would have bought a Tank 300, but those are bigger cars, you know, and now this XL's competing directly with those bigger cars. With its new features, I think it'll do pretty well, but it's one of those things where I guess time will tell how well it can really do in that market of dual cab utes, because you know, you can't tow as much of this. You can't could chop it and put a tray on it, but you can't really chop it and put a tray on it easily. Whereas they're all things that you can do with a, you know, $40,000 second-hand ute. Now the final thing that I want to address is the build quality. So you'll know that if you've done your research, you'll know that this is built in India, whereas the Jimnys that we get in Australia are all built in Japan. There's a certain prestige that comes with Japanese cars, I suppose. There's a demand for that kind of Japanese excellence. I just want to say that there is no way that you can sit in this car and anyone could look around and say that this was built in India. There's no quality difference, you know, unless you look for the stamp that says where it was built, and of course this one says built in India. There is virtually no difference. So I would not let any negative stigma around that and what you see in forums and the negative comments that people make be a deciding factor in your purchase. So that pretty much wraps up this video. Thank you so much for sticking to the end of this one. I know it's a long video. There's so much to cover in this car. It's a really exciting opportunity. It's the first time I've reviewed a new car like this. So drop some comments down below if you've got any questions. But yeah, thanks again for your support, and I'll catch you in the next one.